The last topic we're going to discuss is field flicker. When you have an image with very thin horizontal lines, such as the grills in this radiator here, or if you made a horizontal line that was only 1 pixel tall, once you viewed this on a normal video screen, it may seem to vibrate or flicker. And again, this is because of the interlaced nature of video playback. One set of fields is getting played, then every other line is going to be played a little bit later in time. If you've got a line that's only 1 pixel tall, it's going to be drawn one field, but not drawn the next field. This alternating back and forth between drawn, not drawn, creates the vibration or flicker. Again, this only happens on horizontal lines, not on vertical lines, because fields are a horizontal phenomenon. You won't see this problem on a computer screen. So if you want to check for field flicker, you really need to take advantage of a feature in After Effects known as Video Preview. What you want to do is have some way of viewing your After Effects compositions on a true video monitor, not a computer monitor. There's a few ways to do that. The most common way is to hook up a DV camera to the FireWire output on a computer, then hook up the camera to a true video display. After Effects can then echo the current image out through the FireWire camera to that display. Now we happen to use video cards inside our workstations, such as the deck links from Blackmagic. It's another way of viewing the same information. But this is a precaution you really want to take whenever you're doing something such as thin lines, text, or very sharp photographs to make sure your final output's not going to really vibrate or flicker. Click OK here. So how do we cure the problems of these thin lines in these radiators? Well, there's a few different ways. The absolute simplest way is just to move them off to a half pixel, like 242.5 pixels. What that's going to do is move them onto a half line, so any thin line is going to be drawn half on one line, half on another line. Now you've got a softer line that's going to go ahead and be drawn on two adjacent fields, so they're not going to flicker back and forth as much. And again, so you can see what's going on, I'm going to go back to 243, take a snapshot, then go back to that half pixel. And now as I toggle back and forth, you can see the difference between sharp, our original, and slightly softened by shifting a half pixel. Now that's kind of like the cheating method. What most people do to fix this problem is that they blur the image, but quite often they blur it too much. And I'll show you some problems here. We'll go Effect, Blur and Sharpen. I actually don't use the Reduce Interlace plugin that comes in After Effects. In previous versions I've seen that it's just a little bit crunchy, not as nice as a normal fast blur. So let's go ahead and pick Fast Blur and give a small amount of blur. It can be as small as a half of a pixel, but again, you want to be looking at a video screen and seeing what looks best. If your object's scaled down small, you will need a larger amount of blur. But just so we can see what we're doing on screen here, let's blur it 1 pixel. Now, when you use a blur at its default setting, it's blurring horizontally and vertically at the same time. But field flicker is just a vertical problem, so all you need to do is just blur in the vertical dimension. That way, our vertical lines stay nice and sharp, and it's only our horizontal lines that are going to be blurred. Again, before, after, before, after, and just these radiators have gotten blurred out nicely. Now the problem with applying a blur like this is that it's going to blur the entire image, but really I only have a small part of the image that's causing me trouble, these radiators right here. Don't blur anything you don't need to. Don't blur every single layer, only blur your problem layers. And if you want to be really good, mask down just the areas that need to be blurred. So let's go ahead and go back to where we were, take off this blur effect. I'm going to duplicate my engine layer here. And on the duplicate, I'm going to start drawing masks around just my problem areas, the radiators. So let's go ahead and draw one mask around this radiator. And then let's draw a second mask around this other radiator. So now I have a layer that includes just my masked radiator areas. Apply Fast Blur again, blur 1 pixel, set it to be in just the vertical direction. I'll go ahead and turn off seeing my masks. Now the rest of my image is completely sharp and only the radiators have been blurred. And again, let's compare before and after, before and after. By doing this, only the problem parts of the image have been altered, and I've kept the rest of the image sharp. Another case where we have problems is when we have graphics that have very sharp edges. And even just these very sharp dividing lines between graphic and the background can occasionally cause problems with field flicker. Now there's a few ways of fixing it. One would be just putting it on a half pixel. Go 242.5, and you see now it's softened up a bit. And that's because we are sharing some of the edge between adjacent lines. We don't have a sharp division anymore. You can also do a little selective blurring. But there's another design trick you can use to help solve this problem a little bit. Our problem is caused because we have a very sharp contrast between the line and what's behind it. If we can find a way to reduce this contrast, we will reduce our flicker. So one way of doing that would be to add some sort of glow or drop shadow to this box. So let's go ahead and add perspective, drop shadow. I'll eyedropper a color. It's very similar to my box. Just make it a little bit darker for contrast, but still close enough. And to make it a glow, I'll put my distance down to 0. I'll try a softness of, say, 10. And then go ahead and increase the opacity. And just to really beef up the glow so we can see what's going on, let's go ahead and duplicate that plugin. So this is with my glow, and this is without my glow, my original graphic. With glow, without. That little bit of glow might be enough to knock down my field flicker problems, and also means I don't have to soften my image or otherwise hurt the integrity of my image. It's always better to design your way out of a box if you can, rather than just fall back on something that's going to reduce your image quality. Now the things I've been showing only apply if your output is to interlaced video. If your output's to a computer screen, you don't need to worry about this, because there's no interlacing, there's no fields, so there's no problems like field flicker. If you're creating video that has to play back on a normal video screen and on a computer screen, don't view it just on the computer. You really should also make it work on video, so that when a person watches it on a video screen, they're not distracted by problems like field flicker or other anomalies. It takes a bit of compromise, but it's well worth it, and it's what sets you apart as a professional. I hope this training on fields and interlacing has been very helpful and very illuminating to you. It is a very technical issue, and I hate to get bogged down in technical issues, but I hate even more to have my video look bad, to be honest. By mastering these technical issues, you can then set them aside and get back to designing and making really cool graphics. That's what I hope you do. Take care.